Hey everyone, it's your girl Alio from Fan of Life ND. I hope you're all having a wonderful summer. I wanted to make this video today because I had actually a request from somebody to kind of make a video in regards to applying to CCNM, and I just wanted to give some of my advice based on going through the application process, but some tips that I find to be helpful if I were to go back, and I want to share that with you. So I'd first of all like to thank the YouTuber for making that request. In addition, this video is not only just for anybody interested in attending CCNM. If you're interested in applying to become a naturopathic doctor, I feel this video will be helpful. Also, it might be also helpful if you're considering any professional program. Some of the tips are very general, some of them are very specific. So in the description box, you can look, and I've broken down the times of each question that I'm going to be addressing, so you can feel free to watch this video from beginning to end, or you can also look in the description box to see, okay, this is my question, and just click and watch that time frame. So feel free to share, and please let me know if you have any questions, comments, any requests. So without further ado, I'm going to dive in. Once you've decided that this is a field that you're serious about, even if you're not 100% sure, it's important to get your prerequisite courses underway. And there's many options. For example, my school, CCNM, offers some prerequisite courses to be taken at the school. However, I'd recommend that you look into doing it if you're still studying an undergraduate program, because it's usually cheaper if you study it at your school. I was pretty lucky because I was able to take a lot of the prerequisite courses either as part of my program during my undergrad or as electives, so that also made it cheaper for me. But it also depends, are you in a time crunch? If you're in a time crunch, it would probably make more sense for you to take the prerequisite courses at the school itself if they offer it. And also, if you're no longer studying in undergrad, you've been out of school for a while, then you may want to take the prerequisite courses at the school, because that might be the easiest way to go. Another thing is that there is a time limit on how long from when you've taken the course to when you can actually apply to the school. So also be aware of that as well, and keep that in mind when you're applying. As this is a professional program where you're going to be really focused on what you're studying, it's important to secure your references early, and these are people who can vouch for you. And my recommendation is that, I know that they have specific requirements, like they might be previous employers or previous supervisors from volunteering activities, or maybe even professors, but I suggest that it's someone or people that you've had really close connections with. You don't want to have somebody who doesn't really know you, because then they're not going to make a passionate statement about you. So it's got to be somebody that you know and somebody who you've worked really well with. Some of my references were the first naturopathic doctor I met who really got me interested in the field. I also was able to secure one of my TAs from an anatomy class I'd taken, and also a supervisor volunteer coordinator who I had worked with a few years was also another reference for me. So I worked really closely with them, and I talked to them for years about studying this program, and they were really excited for me. So they also reflected that in the letters of reference. You also want to make sure that you secure your references early, because there can be other students who are also working with those people who would like letters of reference as well. And they are one person. They can only write so many letters. They only have so much time. So you want to make sure that you give them enough time to write the letter, so that you let them know ahead of time, so that they can save enough time to write the letter for you and not feel crunched for time, and so they can't say, no, I cannot write because I don't have enough time. Another reason it's important to secure a reference who you've had a great connection with is because sometimes the person just really doesn't know you that well, and they can't vouch for you, because that would be dishonest for them. So you want to make sure of that. In addition to securing your references early, you want to make it easier for them to write the letter for you. So send them information about the school or schools you're applying to. Let them know the due dates. Let them know what the program is about. Give them as much information as you possibly can. Remind them what capacity you worked with them. And if they have any questions, just make it very easy for them, because if it's tough for them to answer any questions, if they have to assume things, if they have to research information on their own, that does not help them. So make it as easy for them as you can possibly make it. Be aware of what you're getting yourself involved in financially. The program that I'm studying is over $20,000 a year. And when I was applying, it was a hindrance to me. I was like, I don't know if I want to get into this. I already have debt from my undergrad. And I thought about it. And actually, after I got accepted into the program, a few months before I started, I was kind of nervous. I was like, once I start this, I can't turn back. So be aware of the amount of money that tuition costs. Also factor in living expenses. Factor in, are you planning to work before you start your program? Are you planning to work during your program? How are you going to finance your program? Since I'm from Ontario, I have a student loan system that's called OSAP, and so I used OSAP for my undergrad, and I also get a bit of funding from them for this program as well. However, funding from OSAP is not enough for the amount of tuition that this program costs, so I also had to open a student line of credit. The bank that I chose to go to take out my line of credit was CIBC, and that's because before I started the program, I was reading a blog. Erica Robinson, I'll put the details below, and she had stated, like she mentioned her difficulty of acquiring a loan, and CIBC was the most generous. They're very supportive of naturopathic students. So that's what I can say for Ontario for CCNM. It might be different in other naturopathic medical schools. In other programs, there might be more funding. For example, for conventional biomedical training, you'll find that there's way more funding and they're way more lenient, and that's because there's some politics in the system, but that's just something you're going to have to be aware of and plan accordingly. It's important to consider where you're going to be living, because there are naturopathic medical schools spread throughout. Since I'm in Canada, there's 2 in Canada that I'm familiar with, which are the school I'm attending in Toronto and a school in BC, Boucher Institute of Naturopathic Medicine. Now, lucky me, I didn't have to travel very far. I didn't have to pick up my life and leave my life and start afresh. But for many people, they had to leave their home and start fresh. You want to consider, what are your living arrangements going to be? Do you want to live on the residence if they have that option? Would you prefer to live on campus? What is your budget? What are your priorities? For example, I chose to live on res for my first year because for me the commute would have been way too long, and it was just too many adjustments for me, that my priority was being able to have as smooth as possible a transition as I could. So I lived on res because that's as convenient as it can get. The res is literally in the same building as the school. It was also a good choice for me because my budget was really important to me. As I mentioned before, I was kind of stressing about the fact that the program is over $20,000 a year, and this had been the first time that I had been renting, so it was a good price for me to start off with. Also important for you to consider, what do you want your surroundings to be like? For example, some people really need to have their own private space so that they can recharge after every day. Something about res is that you're always around people, and it's great in that way because it's a supportive environment, but it's also a stressful environment when the stress comes. And some people thrive on that, and some people, such as myself, kind of go inwards when that happens. So you want to consider, what kind of person are you? What environment is important to you? Do you want to be surrounded by people all the time? Do you need your individual time once you leave school? Do you want to be in a completely different environment, or is it okay that you're close to the same environment, or do you prefer to be in the same environment? Does it not bother you? So think about these things as well. Once you've decided that you want to apply, and once you've gotten through with the application process, don't let it be a last-minute decision, because then you have less choice in the decision that you make, in the options of the decision that you make. At the time of my application, all of the naturopathic medical schools implemented a system which was called NDCAS. That stands for the Naturopathic Doctor Centralized Application Service. And that was just an easy way if you were interested in applying to multiple schools, to multiple naturopathic medical schools. Prior to that, it was a paper application. You'd fill it out and you'd send it back to the school. The great thing about the online system is you can submit your transcript through there, you can submit your personal statement through there, and your references would directly submit their reference to that system. The other great thing is that you'd always receive an email confirmation whenever they receive something for you, from you. So when they received your transcript, when they received your personal statement, when they received your references. So it was a really great system, and it's especially great if you're applying to multiple schools. I also forgot to mention that you also submit your CV, and in addition to your transcript, personal statement, and it might be slightly different now. There might be higher expectations. As when a field grows, the expectations expand as more and more people become interested. So make sure that when you are ready to apply, you check what they're requiring from you. In addition to making sure that you provide all of the statements, all of the paperwork that the system is looking for, requesting from you, it's also important to keep track of the deadline dates. If you're late with anything, that creates a really bad first impression. And something that I kept in my mind is that, okay, this area is in demand. I really need to be on top of my game. I need to make sure I start things early. Even if it's just, for example, I'll take the personal statement, for example. I had such a hard time starting, but I would just jot down the important things that I wanted to make sure came across in my statement. I'd write that down, and then I'd meet with somebody and they'd help me. They'd give me their feedback on it. They'd kind of help me streamline it, because at one point it was way too much. So I really had to hone in on what are the main points I want to say, what are the things they need to hear from me. And after that, you just keep working at it bit by bit, and then finally you're able to submit it. Now, upon submission, you may never be completely 100% satisfied with what you're providing, which is why all the more reason to start early, to get that brainstorming and mush out of your head into something really coherent. But it's really much, much better to submit something on time or before the deadline than afterwards. Also, if you have a situation where you are going to be late, like there's some sort of emergency that's preventing you from getting something in on time, there's no harm in contacting the school and talking to their student services department and letting them know your situation. If they don't hear from you, they don't know why your submission was late, and that's another reason to put have a negative idea, because you just did not take the time. So if there is an emergency situation or you just cannot get it in on time, there's no harm in contacting them and letting them know. That's providing communication, as opposed to just them red flagging you because they just had no idea at all. Now, I'm not guaranteeing that if you do this, that you'll definitely get in. My stance is bring it in on time, but I also believe it's much better if you communicate than if you don't communicate at all. So the next two things I'm going to talk about are specific to CCNM, because I'm not too familiar with the other options that the other schools have. For CCNM, we have what's called 2 different intakes for your first year. So you can start your program in September, or you can also start in January. Now, first I'll break down what the 4-year program looks like. So this is assuming you're going to be starting in September. You have your first year of classes, and then you have your summer off. You can work, you can relax, whatever you'd like to do. Second year starts, you have your second year classes. That summer you have your first set of board exams, which are called NPLEX board exams. Then third year, you have your third year of classes, your final year of heavy course load classes. And then the third year summer, you go into the clinic. So now you're really into the clinic practical training. So throughout the summer, you're in clinic. Then you enter your 4th year, you're in clinic for that whole year. Then after the 4th year ends, you write your last second set of finals, which are NPLEX Part 2. So that's all if you were to do the program in 4 years and start in September. Now, if you decide to start in January, then rather than having that summer off in your first year, you'll actually miss that first summer and you'll continue all the way through. So here's how it would go. You begin your classes in January of that year. Then the summer of that year, you have your second semester of courses. Then in the fall, you go right on to year 2. You actually join in with the class of the first years from the September group. And then you all go through second year together, which then you have the board exams, then you have third year, then you enter into clinic, and then you have fourth year, and then you enter into your last set of board exams. So I personally decided that I chose to apply later. I was really excited for the program. I wanted to start as early as I could, but I looked at how it would work out, and I decided long term that it would be really important for me to have this summer off and to have a little bit of a break after kind of seeing and getting a feel for what the pace was like. I know a lot of students who have been going non-stop since January and they can't wait for a break. Some of them are handling it very well, lots of smiles on their faces, but it all comes down to what's important to you. I knew that I needed a break to kind of reflect and take a break because I had gone to university for 5 years and had worked during the summer every year and had, been involved in school, and I took summer courses every summer. So I just needed a summer to just kind of reflect on everything and just recharge as my last summer. The second thing, which pertains to CCNM and maybe to the Boucher Institute, BINM, in Vancouver as well, I'm not too sure about the schools in the States, is having the option to pursue your program full-time or part-time. Now, I'll just start by saying the decision that I made, or started off and I'm still deciding. If you choose to go full-time, then that means you finish the program in 4 years and you go along the pace as stated in the previous section of this video, which was about, are you starting in September or are you starting in January? Now, if you take the part-time option, then you will finish in a minimum of 5 years. The thing is, you can always start full-time and change your pace later on, but once you've decided to go on to the part-time path, the way the program is organized, you cannot go back into the full-time mode. It's just because the only time summer classes are offered is in first year, because as I mentioned before, we have the September intake and we have the January intake, and then January intake is doing their second semester during that summer, and then the September and January intake combine as one class in second year, and then they all continue onwards as a group. So there's no options to take upper level courses during the summer if you were to go part-time. Another thing that you want to consider in going part-time or full-time is that there's other expectations of the program other than classroom responsibilities, midterms, and final exams, and final exams, and studying for your board exams. There's also other things such as shadowing, preceptoring. Preceptoring is you have an expert in a field, a healthcare field, and you shadow them and you kind of learn from them by seeing how they operate in their clinical environment. Some of those hours are built into the program, but some of those hours you actually have to go out on your own and seek preceptors and do that on your own time. There's also other things that you want to consider, such as, are you a parent? Are you planning to have children during the program? Also, how do you manage stress? Like, are you ready for this? Are you willing to make changes, modifications to your life to do full-time, or would you prefer to do part-time? Like, it all comes down to what's easiest for you. And I'm really grateful that the school has this option, because it's really understanding that it is a quite intense program, but it's not impossible, and you really need to be in tune with yourself and what your priorities are. I just like to share with you where my head is at right now. Before I decided to even apply to this program, I thought I couldn't handle it. I thought, look at all those courses. The highest number of courses I ever did in university was 4 per semester, because I was always working. I was working part-time. I was also, I always wanted to be involved. That was really important to me. but I really wanted to put myself to the challenge of first year and show myself I can do it. Like other students have done it. My references really believed in me, especially my reference who, has gone through the program, and the program has improved greatly because of feedback from upper year students, such as himself, who graduated years ago. So they had faith in me, and now it was time for me to have faith in myself. So I completed my first year full-time, and currently, as of now, I'm still debating whether or not I should continue full-time or continue part-time. Some days I lean to part-time, most days I lean to part-time, but I do have reasons why I'd like to pursue the program full-time. So, as I'm figuring that out, I'll share what I'm learning with you, but all in all, you really need to learn what's important to you and get to know yourself and really be open to making some sacrifices in your life and changes in your life to make it work, just to make it work and to get through. Now I'm going to be giving you some personal advice that I highly recommend. In the end, the decision is yours, but if you do have the time, I recommend that you do these things because it will only help you to be more sure with your decision and to help you to be more knowledgeable about what this field is about, and also more prepared for when you actually begin the program if you decide this is the path for you. Take anatomy in your undergrad if you get the opportunity to. As of now, I don't think that anatomy is a prerequisite for the program. However, I really strongly feel it should be, and it's the reason I say this is because it is a heavy course. We spend so many hours in class with this course, and it's a lot of material. Now I want to emphasize it's not a difficult subject, it's just voluminous. There's so much information, there's so many details, and with all the other courses that we're taking in this heavy course load, if you decide to go full-time, but even part-time, it is a heavy, hefty course load. You're not going to have all the time you'd like to learn this stuff, and as we've discussed before, learning takes time. It takes time to form these relationships. If you're exposed to anatomy prior, a lot of the information is going to stick in your head, and I took anatomy just out of interest. Back in university, I was considering this field, I was considering conventional medicine, but at one point I was thinking, I don't know if I can handle it, but I am interested in anatomy and I want to take it because I was interested in fitness and the human body. So it was a really great course, and a lot of it stuck with me, which made it a lot easier to kind of hear the information again. It stuck some more in my mind, and it helped me with the workload of dealing with the other courses because I didn't have to spend as much time learning this information as if it was brand new. So when you're really excited about something, it's really easy to just get caught up in it and obsess over it and think about it a lot. And I don't know if you're like me, but I do have some obsessive tendencies still, but back when I applied to university, I'd look at the U of T website all the time. Back then I was really into Facebook, I'd look at as much on Facebook as I could find. I'd look online and just read up on forums, get all the information I could possibly get. And I did the same thing for CCNM before I got accepted, even more so after I got accepted. I just read everything I possibly could, and I think it's really good to do that to an extent, but you also have to be aware of how much time you're spending in this future world when you're not even there yet. I didn't tell you all the courses that you're going to be taking, and all I can tell you is that it's heavy. It's heavy. You can look at the courses yourself and you'll see that it's heavy. You can look at first year, and I listed all the courses and the hours spent in class. So if you decide to do this program, the next 4 and 5 years will be tons of time to study. You'll have actually not tons of time to study, tons of information to study, limited amount of time, but you will not be at a loss for information to look at. So I don't even recommend studying before trying to study and get a leg up. Do that during your undergrad, but enjoy your summer before. If you're working, involve yourself in work. Don't think too much about what the semester is going to be like. Prepare for it, but don't lose yourself. Don't lose your summer just thinking about that. Like, you need to enjoy your summer as well, because once you're in this, the ball is rolling, and you won't get that time back. I also don't recommend trying to study during the summer beforehand, because the way this program is, you learn as you go along. I know very few people who have studied the amount of courses that we study each semester, and you get some preparation in university as in learning how to handle certain courses, learning how to study, but actually managing the load, and you learn some time management skills as well. But when you come into this environment, you need to adapt to this environment. You need to be ready to be open-minded to kind of adjusting some of the skills. You learn what works best for you in university, in high school, and bring that with you into this program, but be ready to modify it a bit. I'll just give you an example of myself. Back in university, I never wanted to skip a class. Looking back, there are probably so many classes I could have skipped, but I never wanted to skip a class because I was always worried that there was something that I was going to miss out on, a really important detail that would make me fail an exam. Now, after going through this first year, I realized that there are some courses that I could have gotten away with not going to class. Now, I went to class for multiple reasons: for peace of mind, to learn from the professor, to get that side information that you can't get from a textbook. But in terms of just passing the course, professors would give direction in some cases and where I should focus my attention. But I really feel that for a lot of courses, I could have read the textbook, I could have followed with the slides, and I would have been just fine. But I wanted to get a greater experience than not just textbook knowledge from being in this program. So I took that method in my first year. I may change it in second year. I may skip some classes. I may be more selective in what I do. But in my first year, that was the way I learned. I kind of took it all in, and I'll tweak it. But you've got to start somewhere, and you've got to be ready to make some adjustments so that you can better adapt and you can make it through. Kind of in line with what I said about enjoying your summer before you begin classes, is once you do begin classes, especially first year, give yourself time to adjust. Do not be too hard on yourself. Be critical, as in, okay, maybe these are some things I can learn, but don't be mean on yourself if you don't do as well as you'd hope in the first round. I mean, this is the first time many of us are taking on this number of classes, this amount of time in the class. A lot of this information is new. We had no introduction to it. For example, homeopathy, botanical medicine, Asian medicine, acupuncture. For some of us, this was like first exposure of really learning it in this environment. So just realize that part of the learning comes from experiencing. And don't be too critical, don't be too hard on yourself, because you will make it through. There are also some systems in place in the school that I really appreciate, because it is a lot. For example, there are opportunities to rewrite exams if emergency situations come up and you can't write the exam the first time. You have opportunities to write it again. Also, if you failed an exam, you didn't get the passing mark of 65%, there is an opportunity to do what's called a supplemental exam, which is a cumulative exam, and you have to get at least 65% on that exam so that you will not have to take the course over again. So there are some things in place to help catch you if you fall. You have to work hard, but you also have to take care of yourself, and you have to try your best and realize that not everything is in your hands, but give your best effort and really be kind to yourself, because if you don't, it's just going to hurt you. And how are you supposed to grow if you don't allow yourself to? I highly recommend this because personally this was a really big decision for me to enter this field, because I had a lot of self-doubt and in my ability to handle it and whether I'd be, a good fit in this field. So I found it really important to go see somebody who's been through the program and who is practicing, to see what it's like. So I've seen a few interns at my school before I started studying at my school, and originally my first intention was to see them so that I can have an idea of what it's like in an appointment, what they do, how long it is. And after that, I actually noticed that there are some areas, health weaknesses I have, that I really like to keep working on, and I've been going back ever since. And especially since I started the program, it's really important to me for my health to continue seeing them. So it worked out in so many ways, but I highly recommend it just because it is a big decision, and I really commend those people who started the program and didn't see a naturopathic doctor before and didn't really know very much about the program, but still had a lot of faith and still carried on and are still enjoying it, because it's, it is a calling. I mean, if you choose this field as opposed to others, it really means something special. But just the type of person I am, I really like to know what I'm getting into so that it can be prepared as possible, and it's something I really recommend. Another great reason to see a naturopathic doctor before you start the program or early into it is because a lot of them are really open to helping you. I'm still in contact with the first naturopathic doctor I ever met, and I check in with him all the time. I'm also in touch with my interns who I saw before I started the program, and it just creates a really supportive network because they've been through it, and soon enough you yourself will become a person that people look to see, like to get some advice, because you're experiencing it and no one knows it better than people who've actually been through it. I'm going to list some resources that I turned to which really helped me before I started and start now that I'm in the program getting through it. So first one is the AANMC website. That stands for the American Association of Naturopathic Medical Colleges, and so that has a list of all the naturopathic medical schools, and I'm not sure if all of them are accredited, but at least you'll get to have an idea of which ones they are. They also, a resource I really used from that website was to I watched a lot of the webinars, and in particular some of them that I remember quite well are ones where they talked about the growth of naturopathic medicine, and they had students, third-year students, talk about their experience from the different schools, which could help you if you're not sure which school you want to go to. You can get some insight on, the weather at the school, how many students are in that school, and just a bunch of information, a bunch of insight. At CCNM in particular, two things that I really recommend is the Student for a Day program and Discover CCNM. So I've participated in both. Student for a Day is where you get to connect with a student and go with them to all of their classes, like their practicals and their lectures. And a great thing about that is you really get to feel what it's like to be in that environment for a day. And I kept in touch with the student that I followed, and she was my intern for my first semester at school. So out of that, she got to be a doctor to a new student, and I got to be comfortable with a student that I was familiar with from before. Discover CCNM is a little bit more formal. You get to hear about the application process, you get to hear about naturopathic medicine, you get to hear a graduate, an alumni from the school speak about their experience in the field thus far. You get free lunch, you get a free textbook, I still have my textbook, you get a tour of the school, and I believe you also get to sit in on a lecture and get to experience. So it's actually quite a big day. You get a little bit of everything, so I recommend doing them both if you get the opportunity to. When you've decided that you'd like to go to one of the schools, get involved in CCNM. Some of the things that I've gotten involved with was I wrote an article for The Vine, which is the school paper, and that was about how my natural hair and this journey of becoming a naturopathic doctor have taught me a lot of things, so I got to express myself in that way. There's a talent show, there's a trip where you get to go with your classmates of first year and just kind of get to bond a bit before classes begin. What else? There's the formal, there's also different clubs you can join, and if you're really interested, if you really have something you're passionate about, you can even start a club. There's different types of health weeks, so you can learn different things during what's called common time at my school. And common time is just a time on Monday and Wednesday, so from 12 to 2 p.m. on Monday and 1 to 2 p.m. on Wednesday, when all students do not have class. So it's a time when, all the students can interact with each other, but also an opportunity for different student groups to hold meetings or different presentations or get together and do stuff. So that's a great thing. I also highly recommend learning a hobby outside of naturopathic medicine. As I mentioned in another vlog, I started learning how to play the guitar, and although I'm not taking classes anymore, I'm kind of learning on my own. I'll send you an update on that in a different video, but in being in classes, I felt like I was stagnant in other areas of my life. So although I was learning more about the field of naturopathic medicine and progressing further to that finish line than I was when, before I started the program, I really felt like, okay, but there's other elements of my life. Like, I still want to, be creative. I want to work that other side of my brain. I want to develop other abilities and skills that I never got the opportunity before. And learning these new things and realizing that, you can really, it's not impossible to learn anything, then I really got excited and I wanted to learn a new instrument. And I really encourage you, like, maybe it's knitting, maybe it's sewing, maybe it's swimming, anything. Just try to do something different so that you can kind of break up, just all the class and naturopathic medicine bubble. There's so much more outside of life, and it's a great bubble to be in, but you don't want to get yourself lost in it. You want to realize that you're capable of a lot, and don't keep yourself in one box. So thank you so much for watching. I really hope that this was helpful for you. It really feels good that I can share some of the things that I've learned, and hopefully it's helpful. I'd also really like to thank the YouTuber who connected with me and stated her interest in hearing these things. I'm only hesitant to say the YouTuber's name because I haven't gotten their permission yet, but really thank you for sending me your feedback. It means so much to me, and I hope I can be helpful in many more ways. Feel free to let me know if you have any questions or comments or any other videos that you'd like to hear about, and I'll do my best, So enjoy the rest of your summer, and we'll be in touch soon. Take care.